vision brought to life on screen.
Yes.
Tell us a little about that.
Well, I will say it was so great having the wonderful EPK folks on set with us, because we knew we were doing something special. It's so rare to do a movie like this, and 54 years after the first film, so that was incredibly moving, and I think all of us knew right from the very start we were doing something extraordinary. And we also felt a great deal of, I don't know, we had humility, I guess, because we were following in the footsteps of that great film. But everyone signed on right away. Meryl Streep wanted to be part of this. Colin Firth wanted to be part of this. Lin-Manuel, his first film, in his first project after Hamilton, wanted to do this. Emily Blunt, of course, said yes. I mean, Angela Lansbury said yes. Dick Van Dyke. I mean, it was sort of an incredible experience, but I think everyone wanted to be part of sending this message of hope and light out into the world now. And that's really why we wanted to be part of this. I mean, the first Mary Poppins film was my first film that I ever saw. I was 4 years old. I saw it in the movie theater, and it changed my life, and the course of my life, and even as a 4-year-old, because it stays with you so deeply. And I will say that it means so much to everyone. So I think having people there recording the making of and how we were putting this together and what we were doing, we knew it was special. And so and they were incredible. Your team was incredible. The Disney team is extraordinary, and they were there. And we were all, I guess, very, very happy that they were there, and proud to share it with them.
There was a lot of talk of passion and heart from all those that were involved, whether in front of the camera or behind the camera. Was that evident on set that everybody was in this to win?
No question. I mean, we just, when you get to do an original musical, I've never done an original musical for film before. All the film musicals I had done had come from Broadway, and that has its own specific challenges. But this was creating something from scratch. I mean, we had the beautiful P.L. Travers stories, but if you read, there are 8 books, and there's all this wonderful material with great characters, but they are episodic adventures. There's no narrative to any of the books. She comes and leaves, but they have these adventures, and so we had to create an original story, and we chose to set it 25 years later, with the next generation of the Banks family, what happened to Michael and Jane as they got older. And we wanted to set it, I wanted to set the film in the 30s when the original books were written. The first book was written in 1934, the second one in 1935, and so we chose to, and when you read the books, you feel the Depression era. They talk about the bank being broken, or that the 17 Cherry Tree Lane was the shabbiest house on the street, and Mrs. Banks had a choice between fixing up the house or having children. So, I wanted to set the film in the Depression era of the books. And so the first film was set in 1910, so here we were 24, 25 years later, and so Michael and Jane would be older. And so it was thrilling to create something completely new. And that's why we had so much rehearsal time, which you see a lot of. I mean, not only did we have an original musical to create, and we don't have out of town like you have with a Broadway show. You don't have that kind of time or previews or anything like that to get it right. So we had that time. But also, you see the scale and the enormity of what we had to accomplish, because there was a live action animation sequence which was completely hand-drawn. We had to take a lot of animators out of retirement to do it because it's a very rare skill, but I really wanted to recreate that feeling of the artistry of that hand-drawn work. But these big scale musical numbers, there was so much flying that had to be done. I mean, that whole underwater sequence was all on harnesses, etc. So we had children involved, so many dancers, so many stunt people, parkour, great bikers. I mean, it was a massive production. I would, it's sort of in the scale of the classic MGM musicals of the, of the 40s and 50s, that kind of thing. So we all knew it was really, so the passion you're talking about is that we were all just, grabbing hands together, jumping off the cliff together and say, we knew the bar was so high. but we knew how lucky we were to be able to be part of it.
Well, and I think you definitely hit the bar. Let's see if we got some questions from some of these folks there in the back row. Let me bring you the mic. Little Phil Donahue action here.
Thanks for having us here. My question is, I saw in the featurettes that there was the original Mary Poppins was in there. I'm wondering if there's any, would you know if there's any talks of a 4K release of that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. That's a complicated thing. I don't know, you have to go back into those vaults and figure that one out. I mean, I will say I return to it all the time. I mean, you know, because it shaped my life, as I was saying. It means so much to me. And I actually caught it once at the El Capitan because they screened it. You know, they did a screening of it. And it was thrilling to see it on the big screen. I mean, that's what's so wonderful. I mean, this is a kind of smallish screen, but, you know, to see a movie like this, our movie, the first film, to see big-scale musical event musicals on the big screen, there's nothing like it. Our premiere was at the Dolby, and the Dolby Theater where they hold the Oscars, and that was unbelievable. And you know what I will say, the first premiere, I don't know, people who know the first Mary Poppins well will know that the first premiere was at Grauman's Chinese, which is right next door. And the fact that we literally closed down all of Hollywood Boulevard for our premiere, and they had two, it was sort of like, wow, we're part of that legacy.
Let me grab a question from this side.
Oh, I love your shirt and bow tie. Look at you. Oh, Sandy Powell will be very impressed.
Oh, great.
Hey, George.
Hi. Okay, here's my question. At the end, you know that beautiful up scene?
Yes.
While you were shooting it,
Yes.
did you go up? Did some of the people behind the scenes go up just to experience it?
I probably should have. Now I feel bad, George, that I didn't, because I was asking everybody to do this. You know, I like to do as much practically as possible. You know, I don't like to do the sort of CG, everybody in a green room. You know, we did that all at Pinewood Studios on the back lot there, that gorgeous backlot garden. And everybody was going up in the air. I mean, there is some of it where everybody is on green screens and so forth. But how they all lifted off and all the beginning of those journeys was all on location. And it was scary for them. But, you know, I will say when the music is blaring, you know, and you have that and you're singing, and I think you forget about the heights. I mean, when Emily Blunt makes her first entrance, not in that number, but at the beginning of the film, that's her coming in. And I remember I asked her to do it, and she was literally above the trees. And she thought, would you really need me to do this? And I said, but you know, we've waited 40 years. You've got to make a grand entrance, and it has to be you, you know? I mean, a little side note, I mean, I don't think Julie would care if I said this, but because I think people know. But that's not Julie Andrews coming in the first film. Up and over in the landing, it's not her. Because they wouldn't let her. They were too nervous about, I didn't care. I thought, well, let's just kill them. But I just wanted it to be her. And she did it. She said it was so scary because they go up and up and up and up and up. And Lin-Manuel's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And she said, and a lot of people said, well, just look straight over the horizon, look over the trees, you'll be fine. And she said, that was horrible. That was worse to see that I'm above the trees. But I think once I put the music on, and I kept saying, it's not you coming in, it's Mary Poppins coming in. And she bought that.
How many takes?
You know what, I think I did it, I want to say 3 times. Maybe, yeah, I think 3. Just because I always get nervous that something happened with the camera, you know. But she was perfect the first time.
Thank you.
You have a question here?
Were there any scenes that you wanted in the movie that got cut?
That's such a great question. You know, usually there are. On this, there's a little tiny scene that's on the DVD. A little tag of a scene and that was the only scene we cut. I think it was because we had to be very meticulous about, before we started shooting, about what we had. There was no time for fatness, you know what I mean? We had to be really specific. And so there was a little tag at the end of Topsy's scene, you know, Meryl Streep's scene, where they're leaving on the bike, on that crazy bike, and they leave the alley and they're riding away, and they look back and the alley disappears, as if it was never there. Sort of like it did it exist or did it not exist. So it was like make a little mini part of the adventure, but it felt too much of it, like we had a double ending, but that was the only thing.